Hello, hello, beloved. It has been a wild ride this week so far, has it not? Very wild ride. That Mr. Toad's wild ride thing just keeps getting more and more wild as we go. And kind of the good news, bad news is that these incredibly high, big, beautiful energies are going to keep coming, and they're going to keep pushing on us, and they're going to keep shaking things up. And so that's kind of the good and the bad news, right? So we are having the last few bits of the Passageway time that we've been speaking about since January, and it's getting pretty squeezy. It's getting pretty tight. And so some of you may be really feeling that pressure. And an image that's come through in many different contexts for me around this is the classic compressing the carbon down into the diamond. And so if you're feeling that kind of squeezy pressure in any circumstance in your life right now or in your inner state, I encourage you, I exhort you to grab that and to go, aha, okay, the diamond is in here. How do I support this refinement, this distillation even more to get to that diamond, to kind of get into that core piece? Because the pressure points are the data that you need. And the kinds of things that are getting kind of shook up at this time they can be anything, but thematically at the largest kind of level, the kind of most macro level, as you know, I will talk about how the Earth herself is moving through an evolutionary journey in which the ratio, if you will, of kind of not darkness, but density to energy, density to lightness, matter to energy is shifting. And that she turned the corner, if you will, and began shedding density a while back and is continuing to do that kind of journey into an increasing ratio of lightness of energy versus matter and density. Not that there's anything wrong with matter. Please don't mistake me there. And I also never am speaking about light in a way that kind of makes that sense of the darkness within us that we experience is something to run away from or hide or demonize. That's not also what I'm doing. And I know there's increasing messages like that on the planet currently. So I just really want to bring your attention. But the light, as it increases, more and more light is going to show you where shadows are. And that can be really useful if you choose for it to be, because then you get to work with those. And see, is there something here in my journey that wants to be completed, that is ready to be done, that needs to be kind of left behind as I compress further down, as I distill and refine further down into the purity of my own essence, because only that is what will travel through the eye of the needle at the end of this passageway that we're in. And of course, we pop through, and then we're just in another new phase. So it's not like, oh, you pop through and then you're done and the ride's over and the whole thing is handled. That's not the age that you chose to be alive in. Sorry, good news, bad news, check your soul contract. But, but it's also beautiful and glorious. So the next kind of macro level energetically for the planet and for the collective that may be playing out for you is related to this restoration of the feminine energies, where humanity has been living with and expressing an inversion of feminine energies for several millennia, and that correction has been underway for a while, and we have a kind of another big wave of that came through in these last couple of days and may be affecting you in various different ways. And so that may look like where am I giving my power to, or what relationships are working or not working for me, what is going on inside me around what I believe or assume to be true. And also a kind of an interesting sub-theme that I'm seeing particularly in the last little bit of time here is the idea that you're giving your power away inappropriately when in fact what's actually happening is that there is a kind of a grabbing of it. There's an effort to take that power from you, to take your light, to take your magic for itself. And this is, if you're feeling that, this is that inverted feminine energy problem, if you will, that is being restored at this time. And so there may be kind of an experience of it that's kind of flushing through you, washing through you in a way that may be about you and may just be simply washing through you. If it's about you, then look at, is there a way that you can work with essentially that kind of no boundary? You shall not pass. You don't get to come in here. And it's not my fault, right? Because there's a self-blame thing that can happen around the idea of, no energy's trying to take your power away. What's actually happening is you're giving it away. That's your fault. Stop giving it away. Well, are you giving it away, or is it being, siphoned, right? It's tricky. There's a both and available here. So I don't want to belabor this particular sub-theme, but it is an important one. And it's important in these energies right now to really stand for your own purity. And by purity, I mean that which is you, and everything that is not you can't come through with you. And by that which is not you, it's not about your relationships or your connections, because we're all connected to everything. It's about where it's just an incorrect energy. It's not aligned. The relationship, the business, the job, the home, the way you do the dishes, it doesn't matter what it is, but you know inside where that lack of resonance exists, and it's up to you to to deal with that, right? No one else can do that. No one else can set the boundary around it and be like, this is a yes, this is a no, this comes, this stays, this goes. No one else can do that kind of cleanup internally, if you will. And there are some messy, difficult, kind of barnacleized, encrusted layers of energy that you may be needing to kind of burst through, if you will. And barnacles, they freaking hurt. When you step on them, they slice your feet open. So there might be painful moments, and that's also okay. And just keep going, keep moving. Tap into that great white shark energy we've been speaking about a lot recently, and just keep going. And not in a way that pretends the things didn't happen or pretends it didn't hurt, but in a way that is just like, yep, okay, what's for me to learn from this? What's for me to improve from this? Or what's for me to kind of clean off from this? What's available for me to complete? That is like, that's done, not doing that anymore, or not doing that, that time is over. And as much as possible, if those choices can be made from neutrality, then the choices will serve you better, kind of be better springboards into the next phase of where you're wanting to go. So the other thing that I really want to speak to is about kind of the next level on the water side of things that I shared in the last episode with you. So I want you to be aware of a more newly discovered organ in the human body called the interstitium. And the interstitium is essentially this kind of like fluid, this like channel of fluid throughout the body, similar and kind of like flowing along with the fascia, that previously was not understood to exist until just very recent, like a few years ago at the most. I want to say 2016 might have been the first published paper on this. And it wasn't perceived by the human imaging techniques, because the human imaging techniques were either imaging at a close-up level dead tissue, and so all the fluid was gone, and the membranes essentially encasing the fluid were thin enough that they didn't show up as anything more than, or weren't perceived perceived as anything more than a very kind of dense tissue, dense fibrous tissue, or that was how it was looked at on kind of the more crude tools that are used on living tissue. So, but this has very important ramifications in many different ways in the sciences. This channel, this sort of fluid channel throughout the body, carries information, cells, molecules throughout the body in ways that hadn't previously been understood in human science, that make perfect sense. Like, as you hear it, you're like, well, of course. I already thought that existed, kind of. Did we need to have a name for that? But it's actually really useful that we have kind of names and models and understandings of it in terms of various different kind of human science pieces. But what I want you to be aware of is this kind of can enrich, if you will, your own relationship with the fluids in your body, with the water in your body, and remembering that molecularly, water is 99% of the molecules in your body. And by volume, water is 60 to 70% of your body. And remembering, of course, as we've talked about before, your body is a story. Your body has many stories. And so there's an opportunity to come into another level of relationship with your body at this time and to essentially choose different stories or new stories with your body. And our bodies have had many, many, many years of us not being trustworthy. So part of what's happening now is that you're having the opportunity to create and earn trust back with your body. And the ways in which we haven't been trustworthy with our body are, of course, legion, right? And you can think of them right away. Like, what are some of the crappy things that we eat? What are some of the environments that we put ourselves in? Do we do the kinds of physical movements that support our body? Are we, nourishing the body in various different ways behaviorally? Are we in communication and connection with the levels of consciousness within our body and hearing from our mitochondria what it wants and needs? What are we hearing at a cellular level, at a molecular level? What are our organs telling us? Are we acting on what we're hearing? I'm not saying that it's easy to be, and that there's you have to be perfect, right? It's very easy to slide into the sort of perfectionism, procrastination, shame spiral of, if I can't do it 100% right this moment, then fuck it. I might as well just, eat the 500 bags of potato chips or ice cream. I get it. I totally get it. This is also, by the way, extra likely as a behavior, if you will, to kind of immediately slide into that all or nothing for the highly gifted. And that's just something that we tend to do much more quickly than others, although others do this as well. So kind of, if you're recognizing yourself in that, just like, hi, human, I see you, I get it. So it's really just about what are you doing in that moment? Can you in that moment come into more trustworthy behavior with your body? And there are many levels and layers upon which that kind of the choices there can affect your relationship with other aspects of your consciousness as well. And that then has a radical shift on your quality of life experiences and what's kind of manifesting around you in your external circumstances. So the water piece, the water piece that has been coming through since the last transmission is really around how water is expressing itself in multiple dimensions. So we do have this conversation about water having multiple different states of matter here in the material plane, the third dimension. It's a liquid, it's a gas, it's a solid. There are other states of matter that have been recently discovered and discussed in various settings. And then I also want you to kind of feel into the way in which matter is expressing in higher dimensions as a portal, like a Stargate kind of portal. And that water expressing, did I say matter? I meant to say water. That water is expressing in higher dimensions as a portal, as like a Stargate portal. And the water within the human body is beginning as part of this evolutionary journey to be prepared for expression in higher dimensionality as a portal. So we are becoming living portals, multidimensional, pan-dimensional portals, physically. This is a long journey. Evolution takes a long time physically, but this is part of where Homo lumens is going. And it can be very fun and important to play with that. And when you really get into, when you look at how important it has been for you to have relationship with water in many different ways, and the wisdom and the knowledge of the land keepers for many, many, many eons around the idea of water is life. Yeah, it's not just literally physically life in the sense of the 3D. There's also this higher dimensional component. So I really want you to be able to have that and be able to work with that. The passageway, I feel we move through it on like the 22nd, 23rd is what I keep hearing. And I've been hearing that from the beginning that I started talking about this, but I haven't really talked about that date because I've been waiting for it to come in more closely. And I've kind of gone back and forth a little bit in my hearing about that versus I think the 29th, 30th when we have the eclipse. But that feels actually, that eclipse energy feels like it's part of the beginning of the next phase. So I think we go through the passageway, the 22nd, 23rd is what it feels like to me. And I'm talking about kind of the bio side of things as well, because some of us have already been on the other side and been having that weird feeling of, I'm already through the passageway, what's going on? But the body has to go through this process. And then I think we may have a kind of a little bit of an in-between period. We'll see how this goes. And then kind of a new beginning with the eclipse energy. But I'm not 100% sure about that. And it's really important to stay fluid with all of this stuff and just kind of let what's unfurling unfurl. And I don't remember if I spoke about this in the last audio transmission episode or if I only wrote about it and shared it in my socials. But one of the things that began the beginning of the month was these 6 new golden timelines, these sort of golden threads of 6 timelines opened and became available to each of us. And they're uniquely yours, uniquely mine. We each have them, and they're new high golden timelines. And they came in and related to this shift in the understanding of water and the kind of there's a lot going on around hexagonal and sort of 6-pointed geometry that I can't translate into words effectively. But I just want you to see the connections between kind of the water, the dimensionality of water, the share last time about the water hydrogen molecule smushing out into the 6 different superpositions within the hexagonal structure inside the gemstone barrel. And then this connecting to the water's expression at a higher dimension and these 6 golden threads. It's all related in a way that I can't articulate fully, and I apologize if that's frustrating for you. It's frustrating for me too. So but these 6 golden threads, they are sentient and very intentional in what they're doing, and they're working with each other to come into union in the correct weaving for you based on what you've been doing and working with since they came in, which I'm not great with time, but I think it was the 31st or the 1st of April. And you could look at my Facebook post to see where I mentioned this, because I believe I mentioned it pretty quickly, or maybe even the same day. And they are now kind of in this kind of coalescing as we move through to the end of the passageway. They are coalescing into one singular kind of twined together, woven together strand of a beautiful timeline that you will kind of ride through the eye of the needle. As we move through the passageway, you will move through on this new golden timeline that you are weaving through your behaviors, choices, experiences, energetics, integrations, blah, 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 during this passageway time. So I wanted you to have this information before we actually go through, because it's still coalescing, it's still being woven, and so you are weaving it, right? So you can pay attention to that and make your devotional, attentional choices accordingly. And of course you can always, there's no like, oh, and then you're cut off. If we get on the other side, that you're cut off from kind of the higher version, but it will be much harder to weave a new higher one, much easier to do it now and to then ride that thread through, if you will. And I really have this very strong visceral image of like kind of a little pixie person, like literally sliding down in a playful way, this giant golden thread, and just sliding right on down and zipping right through that eye of the needle like a very playful little portal. And that's really the energy I want you to kind of connect into for yourself. So yes, and then we're, kind of off to the next level, and the what that will look like, there's lots of different things that we could talk about. I don't think that we really need to. I don't think that any of them are necessary or useful at this time. The main thing that I want you to be aware of is that the acceleration of energies that we have been feeling will continue. I don't see any slowdown of that throughout the rest of the year. Quite frankly, I see a number of different inflection points, and if it makes you feel a little exhausted when you hear that, believe me, I hear you. And I want you to know that there is a kind of a both and around it can be exhausting, but also, there are so many beautiful things occurring as a result that I want you to really remember to focus there and to understand that the quote unquote exhaustion is actually serving you to shift your rhythms, because your rhythms are required to change at this time, so that your focus, your attention, your rhythms, how you're living your day-to-day life, how you're living your larger rhythms of your kind of weekly, monthly, quarterly, annual life are changing. They are required to change, and your body is actually forcing you by being tired to change. The more you have already adjusted your rhythms, the less negatively you have been impacted, is what I feel. Now, this is a broad statement. It's not, exactly true for each person, but it is a useful broad statement for most of you. So keep leaning into that. Keep leaning into that. Where are those rhythms? Also, give some thought to the way in which we have been conditioned deeply to fear when the unknown comes up to us, right? That feeling of like, oh no, somebody's coming up behind me, right? In the physical body, out in the world, in a dark alley, yeah, great, that's useful. Sitting in your home in a safe place, like at your altar, or just kind of like doing your art or your writing, or like out in nature or whatever, and you feel that presence of help that's coming in that is non-corporeal, you don't need to be afraid of that. Like, lean back into that. Allow that support to come in. Think about the ways in which your nervous system is too overstimulated and has not been healed from the trauma of being a human in the 21st century, and how that work of supporting your nervous system is vital to being able to have the quality of experience and the access to your true pan-dimensional and your cosmic nature that you really are seeking and desiring to have. So I think this is where I'm needing to stop today, but I'm wanting to get some of this out to you so that you can be working with it, and keep on going, keep on flowing. Really be fluid, really feel into the water in your being, and really feel into that purity of self, of essence, and understanding that essence, that purity is not just in a vacuum, right? That it's like at a much higher dimension, like we are all connected to the same purity and we are all expressing and embodying that kind of core same purity. That's why there is that cosmic right to purity, that if you search earlier episodes, you'll find that, and you may find it useful to invoke that. So it is a both and here. And remember that purity that I'm really exhorting you to seek exists as much in the dirt and the ground and the soil and the blades of grass and the waters of the lake and the trees and the messiness of biology as it does out in the cosmos. It is not a colonial, patriarchal, old world religious institution, inverted feminine bullshit version of purity. All right. It is that diamond essence within. Okay. I love you and I thank you for your light in the world. Keep being brilliant, wonderful being, luminous, radiant being. Keep tending to your radiance, to your luminosity, to your light, to your heart. I love you. Thank you.